Fracking for shale gas in Lancashire was stopped again today, but for the first time, just after 12:30, there was a red event. It's what critics feared. Today's tremor measured 0.8 on the Richter scale. Now, under the regulations, anything over 0.5 is classified as a red event, and that means that operations must stop. Two other tremors earlier this week were both slightly less than 0.5, but the energy firm Quadrilla stopped as a precaution. So, why is it happening? Well, the British Geological Survey, which is also monitoring the site, says that fracturing the shale rock at high pressure will cause microseismic events. They are too small to feel on the surface, and this site is being scrutinised with an array of sensors. However, opponents of fracking are worried. Remember, it was bigger tremors, measuring 2.3 and 1.5 in 2011 in a different place, which stopped this industry in its tracks. Now, if these small tremors have occurred this week, each one slightly bigger than the last, their fear is what comes next. Well, that's a question I asked Quadrilla's chief executive just before we came on air.
What happens next is we cease fracking operations for 18 hours and we monitor to make sure that nothing is happening underground, and then we start again. But I'd certainly like to reassure people that these levels are still far below anything that could be felt, much less cause damage or harm. And the threshold at 0.5 has been set at what everybody recognises is an extraordinarily conservative number. So
it's set there for a good reason, though, and you've breached it.
Well, it's set there conservatively. Typical red lights for geothermal projects, I understand, in Europe are set at a 2.5. Equivalent traffic lights in Canada are actually set at a 4. Those
are the countries that you've just mentioned where the boundary is a good deal higher. Are you therefore saying that it's too low in this country, and because you have to keep stopping every time you hit 0.5, actually you're not going to be able to do what you need to do, are you?
Well, it's certainly a very challenging limit, 0.5. I mean, the ground motion associated with that, for reference, with the 0.76 today, came out at 0.5 millimetres per second. If you're doing any construction activity or quarrying, the limit is 15 millimetres per second. So for operations, normal construction projects on the surface are allowed to operate at 30 times higher than we are regulated. In fact, more than 30 times higher. And to cause damage, it has to get to 50 millimetres per second.
So you're not worried?
I'm not worried about damage or harm.
At what point would you be worried? What sort of level do you have to hit for you, with 35 years' experience in the industry, to be worried?
Well, I think, you have to get to a 2 at least before anyone can feel it. You have to get to a 4 or a 5 before you get to any possibility of causing damage, not serious damage. So I'll refer you back to the limits in other countries.
Couldn't it happen here? Do you do anything differently that mitigates that risk? It could hit the kind of levels they see in other countries?
Well, no, because we can see that the traffic light system is working very well, and the microseismic equipment that we have in place at the Preston Road site is not replicated anywhere else in the world. Certainly not in an oil and gas site. Nobody is actually recording down to those levels because they know it's not going to cause any issue at those levels. Typically, they're recording at 2s and above.
So tomorrow morning, it's business as usual.
That's our plan.
Francis Egan, thank you.
You're welcome.
The Crown